Greetings, everyone. Greetings to all of our sci-fi, horror, and fantasy fellow listeners. Welcome to our show. My name is Ron Donahue, along with my co-host Jeff McIntosh. How you doing, Jeff?
I am doing fine. I'm enjoying the change of seasons up here. The hot temps of August have gone away, and we are now moving into the much cooler 60s and 70s and the changing leaves in upstate New York.
I'm jealous, man. Today it was like pass out hot down here in South Florida. So send some of that down here, would you? Because it's like just disgustingly it's so hot down here. It's ridiculous.
Well, Ron, you must be getting close to the age of retirement. So, when you decide to close up shop, just put the wife and the daughter in the car and head up about 14, 15 hours, up north, and we'll take you to the cider mill and get you some apple cider and some fresh donuts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can hang out in the backyard and look at my neighbor's yards.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm out like a scout on a new route once I retire. I'm out of the South. I've been down here, like I say, long enough, and my wife already knows I am out. Once I retire, I'm going to I want 4 seasons a year. That's all I want. 4 seasons per year. But so, folks, this is pretty much the layout of our show. Jeff and we're going to go ahead and just talk about some recent things that's going on in the news or whatever, dealing with some of the issues of movies coming out or different things. And then after that, we're going to have a question of the week that we'll discuss with one another. But starting off, like I say, the first thing is, Jeff, have you seen? I saw an article, a couple articles. One in Variety was talking about the director James Wan. I guess he's in early talks now. It seems like that Universal is trying to reboot their dark universe. I know they tried to kick it off originally with Tom Cruise and The Mummy back in 2017, but that movie was a disaster. Do you know how much money? Do you know how much money that movie made?
No, I don't. Not offhand. Not without looking.
Well, I can tell you. So in the United States and Canada, it earned 80.2 million. Worldwide, it earned 329.8 million. Right. For a total, it comes up to like 410 million altogether. But just to break even, they had to make 450. So altogether, that movie lost between 60 and 95 million dollars. So I guess at that point, that's when they were just like, okay, you know what? I think we're gonna stop with this, dark universe stuff. And you see, we didn't hear anything for a while after that.
Well, it's funny, and I just want to kind of throw in a little bit of historical context on some of this.
Uh-huh.
The Universal Monsters movies, starting around 1925 or so, when Universal released Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay.
And then we went into Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, etc.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these movies were based on literary sources.
Right.
Frankenstein was a novel. Dracula was a novel, etc. And I believe that as we were moving into and then moving out of the Great Depression, Universal's fortunes had taken a dip.
Okay.
So they, the decision was made by the head of the studios, to start buying some of these literary properties to be filmed. and they were extremely popular, and they brought Universal back into back into the black, so to
Okay.
speak.
Okay.
And these movies were made, the 1930s, and they were really popular. And then you got into a lot of sequels. Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of
Uh-huh.
Frankenstein,
Uh-huh.
Dracula's Daughter,
Uh-huh.
and as you move into the 50s, you have Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
I love that movie.
Meet the Killer, Boris Karloff,
Right.
all these type of movies.
Uh-huh.
But they were made at a time when things were simpler. Society was not as complex and storied as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Universal, who has got all these old movies that continue to draw revenue for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're streaming. There are new versions of these movies put out on DVD. I bought probably 10 or 15 years ago. Universal released like the Wolfman collection and the Frankenstein collection.
Right.
So they're continuing to make money. Images on T-shirts, lunchboxes, jewelry.
Yeah, that's true.
I've got a friend who bought the ring that a copy of the ring that Boris Karloff wore in The Mummy in 1932.
Okay.
So Universal is getting bucks from this. And I think that they've got executives sitting over in the main office in Culver City or wherever they make all these decisions, and they're saying, Wolfman and Dracula are still doing good business for us.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it would be a good decision to go ahead and pull all of these monsters into a shared universe.
Right.
Like they do with comics.
That's right.
I still read a little bit on comics, even though I don't read the comics anymore.
Uh-huh.
And you read about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is Blade and the Fantastic Four and the Incredible Hulk, and do they all live in the same reality?
Right.
And if you look at some of these old monster movies from Universal, they're in environments that never existed. I mean, one of the Frankenstein versus the Wolfman took place in Valeria, I want to say right off the top of my head.
Uh-huh.
And people are going, well, where do you find Valeria on the map? I mean, it kind of looks vaguely Germanic.
Right.
But, it could be, it could be in Wales or England or Scotland or France. You really don't know. But they want to go ahead and put all these monsters in the same environment and try to figure out a way to tap into that cash cow again.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because what really gave them the ideal to relaunch the Dark Universe. Of course, the Mummy bombed in 2017, but did you see the 2020 Invisible Man? Did you see that?
I watched about 3/4 of it, and my wife really liked it. And after about an hour and a quarter, I'm just going, meh.
You didn't like it?
It didn't thrill me. I mean, you have to reimagine the audiences. Audiences today aren't the same audiences that we had in the 1930s and the 1940s. So we can't necessarily go along with, there's a chemist and he mixes up a secret formula.
Right.
himself and he goes crazy, and he eventually dies at the end, having learned his lesson that he didn't want to to usurp the powers of God.
Right.
And so is that going to fly in 2024? Probably not. I mean, you've got such things as like Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility. Where
Okay.
you go, he put the cloak on, and nobody could see him. And there have been, and I'm not particularly well informed on this, but there have been current research where the government, particularly the military, is testing various types of specially electronic.
Yeah, I've seen it. The material where it almost looks like you can see through the person. I've seen that stuff before.
Yeah. So and you have to look at that with what's that old expression? Believe half of what you hear and nothing of what you see. So,
Yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying. I mean, though the Invisible Man, it did do very well at the box office, and see that's when I think that they started changing their mind. To say, hey, look, maybe just the Mummy was just it was not a great movie, but maybe when we try these other titles that we have, other characters, maybe it might work out because I mean did you see the preview, the new preview of the Wolfman that's coming out in January?
I had just seen a trailer.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't show anything, but I had seen a couple of other articles where they thought that there was some kind of expo, some kind of con, and they got a picture of a guy who everybody says is the Wolfman in this new picture.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen the picture, and again I kind of look and go.
It's a you know what I mean it looked pretty good to me. I mean it's still the original. The actor's name that's supposed to be playing the werewolf is the actor Christopher Abbott, and he's actually playing Lawrence Talbot, the same character from the original Lon Chaney Jr. played. And I think the only difference is, I mean, you could kind of figure out everything that's kind of going on from the trailer. He's a married guy, has a daughter. They live out in, I don't know if it was the Ozarks or somewhere in the backwoods or somewhere. And I guess there's a werewolf that's in the vicinity of where they are, and he's like, "Oh, I got to protect my family," and da 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 da. Well, somehow he ends up getting bit, just like almost like the original series. So it's not that much of a difference between the original movie. I think the only difference is just taking place in a different location. And I mean, it looked pretty good. I mean, so far so good. Anyway, I mean, the trailer can 9 times out of 10 be way better than the movie is, but I mean, it looked pretty good.
I would of course go to see it. I am particularly fond of werewolf or Wolfman movies, beginning with 41's The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr., which is one of my top 5 werewolf movies. And I'm getting the impression that they're trying to emphasize more of the psychological changes, perhaps, that goes into somebody that has been bitten by a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
Freud did a case back in like early 1920s, I think, of a case that became known as the Wolfman, where a guy believed that he was actually turning, or had dreams that he was turning into a wolf. And Freud claims to have, cured him and, later research over the years, has kind of indicated that the guy, still had problems with dreams of turning into a wolf. And so I would at least probably think about going to see it. I had read an interview with Jason Blum of Blumhouse, who does a lot of these horror, sci-fi type of movies. And he said that, after the release of The Wolfman with Del Toro in it, that the movie underperformed, that Universal was not particularly happy with, the box office on the movie. But with, when the Invisible Man came out and did good business, Bloom began to think that there was a place for these classical monsters in contemporary society, but at low to mid budget, almost like a niche picture. Where you could say, hey, you remember Lon Chaney from 1941? We're updating the picture 60, 70 years later, and it's going to be all new and all different, and plunk down your $15. So yeah, I mean, maybe Bloom was right. I mean, he was right with The Invisible Man. Personally, like I said, I didn't care for it, but I would be willing to see what he does with the Wolfman. I would be interested to see if he does anything with The Invisible Man. I mean, I liked The Hollow Man that came out 10, 15 years ago, where they have a team of researchers, and Kevin Bacon takes the invisibility.
Oh yeah, I remember. Then he starts to become like psychotic, right?
Well, more of a psychopath. I know that he had been watching. He ended up forcing himself on his former girlfriend, Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I can tell you what my biggest concern would be is, so as I said, James Wan they're in talks with him to direct a new Creature from the Black Lagoon. And to touch bases with what you were saying, I mean, I really do think this is going to be something that's coming. I don't think it's too much of a coincidence. Image Comics just recently started putting out classic, like four issue series. The first one they came out with was Dracula. The second one they came out with was Creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, the return, I think it's like the return. It's like a continuing story of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And then they just put out Frankenstein now. So I'm like, man, have they got their ear to the ground? It's just a little bit too coincidental that they're coming out with these books now, and they're already in the works of making these movies, because the Creature from the Black Lagoon, I don't know when that one is supposed to be released, but I know that the Werewolf comes out in January. The thing that I don't want to happen, this is what bothers me with movies. I don't want Creature from the Black Lagoon to be a gore fest. I because if you think about it, all these different movies we're talking about, like the original Dracula, Bela Lugosi, Frankenstein, all those ones, yeah, people got killed in it, but you didn't have to see, guts and intestines and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like, for me, I like the remake that John Carpenter did of The Thing, but I can tell you, my favorite movie is The Thing from Another World. It's completely different than his version, right? Because you don't have the alien transforming, looking like other people and all that kind of stuff. But to me, I honestly like that one better. His version, it's a good movie. I love the movie. I mean, he did a great job, but I'm hoping that that's not what's going to happen, with James Wan's version of the creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know. I just those movies were so good that they stood alone. They didn't need like a lot of blood and guts and CGI. You know what I'm saying? They had great actors, and I'll say it to this day, the greatest Frankenstein. I know we've had a whole bunch of different ones, Glenn Strange and Bela Lugosi, but Boris Karloff, I'm sorry, for me, will always be the greatest Frankenstein ever. So you had great actors in these different roles. Um, and you didn't need all that stuff. So that's what I mean, fine, do an updated version, make it modern times or whatever. Again, I'm just saying, I just hope it doesn't end up just being like, all blood and guts, and because I don't think the story really needs that.
Well, Del Toro had tried for years to be able to land a remake of a Creature, and for whatever reason couldn't get it done. But he did do a movie a few years ago. I want to say like 2015, that was called The Shape of Water.
Yeah, I saw it.
That was
Yeah, I
kind
saw
of
it.
his homage to Creature of the Black Lagoon, or at least as close as he was going to be able to get.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was okay. I mean, I saw it. It was okay. It was okay.
Well, there was a guy. I read a lot. If I had to say, maybe my biggest strength is that I'm reading constantly. But there was a guy that I used to read, since passed away, the name of Charles L. Grant, and he was the epitome of what he liked to call quiet horror. It was stuff that was just like suggestion, creepy dark shadows. Maybe there's a monster, maybe there's not a monster. And on the other side of the fence are the people that like the gore. Yeah, you know what? I want to see the zombies come in and tear off arms and legs. I
Right.
want to see people decapitated. I want to see gallons of blood all over the screen. I really like that stuff. And there are people who like that, but it's just not me. I mean, to me, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to throw blood and gore at the audience.
Absolutely. And a lot of time, I think, even throwing CGI in the mix, I think that's what happens a lot with a lot of movies I've seen, where it really is not a really great story. So it's kind of like they pad the story with the blood and the guts and the CGI for a weak story. That's all I'm saying. I can say I'm just hoping that's not going to be the case. I didn't like he directed Aquaman, and I hated that movie. I mean, I hated that movie. I don't know. I know people's like, oh, I love Aquaman. I didn't like it. I guess the thing that bothered me the most was just the way that Jason Momoa prepared. The way he was kind of like the surfer, like this surfer dude. Aquaman. That's the thing I didn't. And the lame jokes every 5 seconds. That was my thing. And he's a good actor. I like Jason Momoa, but I just couldn't get into it. But
well, for years in the comics, I think that Aquaman was just kind of treated like as almost like a joke, as we don't know what to do with him. Oh, he can talk with fishes.
Right.
Okay, big deal. And then DC started to revamp their superhero line, and they made him more of a badass.
Oh, he is. Oh, definitely is now. Especially after he lost his hand and had that hook on his hand. I'm like, man, Aquaman was like no joke. I mean, for real. I remember what episode? What was I watching? I don't remember if it was. Did you ever watch that? I love that show. Oh my god, it was the Unlimited. Is it Justice League Unlimited, the
Yeah,
animated series?
I used to watch that show. Absolutely.
And I think it was this one episode. It was this one episode where Aquaman, I think like the Lanterns had to work with, I don't remember what happened, but they had to work with Batman and whatever, Superman, Wonder Woman, all them. But at the end, I just remember like Aquaman was on this, I don't know if it was a whale or some big Leviathan, and he was just like going down in the water, just staring at Superman, like, he knew he couldn't do nothing with this guy. I mean, like, man, yeah. Aquaman he is not a joke. Talking to fish is just one of his many talents, and yeah, he is much of a badass. But
And
anyway, let's move on to the last part of our show where we have our weekly question. So this week, our question is: if you had the ability to have a movie marathon at a theater near you, you have your own, theater set up, and you could select any four sci-fi movies that you wanted for a 4-movie marathon, what would you choose? So, Jeff, what would be your 4 sci-fi movies for your movie marathon?
I am not quite old enough to remember sci-fi or horror movies from the 50s, but
Okay.
I'm pretty close.
Okay.
But I think that I would go with, because I liked when we had years ago when I was a kid growing up, we had one of these horror host programs. Saturday afternoon, 1:00, a monster movie matinee.
Uh-huh.
So I got an introduction to all these old movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go with number one. I think Them.
Yes, I love that movie.
There's something with Edmund Gwynn
Uh-huh.
and Marshall Dillon and
Uh-huh.
Giant.
Uh-huh.
So I would go with Them.
Okay.
And my second movie would be They Came from Outer Space, that had the professor from Gilligan's Island in a supporting role.
Uh-huh.
3, I think I would go with Tarantula with I can't think of the guy's name that was Mr. Waverly on the Man from U.N.C.L.E. series that I do remember from the 1960s.
Okay.
And probably the fourth movie is, I want to go back to 1941 and Universal's Wolfman.
Okay. So it's so funny that you said Them, because I was having such a difficult. Them was actually on my list, but then I scratched it off. I mean, as much as I love that movie, I scratched it off. So what I ended up selecting was 1951, the day the Earth stood still.
Yeah, classic.
Second one I mentioned earlier also came out 1951. The Thing from Another World. 1956, Forbidden Planet with Leslie Nielsen, Anne Francis, and Walter Pidgeon.
Yeah.
And Robbie the Robot. And then my fourth movie would be 1979's Alien. Ridley Scott's Alien. That would be my 4. I guess, is that sci? Well, or is that more? Well, it's kind of like sci. I didn't think about it. Now I'm thinking about it. Is that like? I know it's horror, but it's kind of sci-fi too, right? The space.
If you're out in space in a spaceship,
Yeah,
that says sci-fi to me. But there's no reason why you can't have a hybrid, because there are some films that are sci-fi horror, like Event Horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Where would you pigeonhole that movie? Is that horror? Is that science fiction? Is it fantasy?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my four. That's my four. That's my
And if you liked Alien, there was a movie that come out. I want to say sometime in the late 50s,
mhm.
and it was called it the Terror from Space or some
Yeah, I know that one. I saw that one. That's the one. Isn't that the one where I don't know his name. The guy who was the professor on Gilligan's Island, wasn't he in that one?
Russell guy's name was Russell Johnson.
He's in it,
Um,
right?
I don't think so, but I don't. You know what? I can take a look.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Hold on. It from Outer Space. Let me see. The cast. Let's see here. It from Outer Space. Let me see who the cast is.
No, he's not in it. And Dabbs Greer, who had a long career in TV, he
Uh,
was the pastor on what's his name's TV show, and I think his last role he was in The Green Mile,
oh yeah.
and a lot of these other folks, Ray Corrigan. I mean, he had a long career, like back in the 40s. Rest of these folks, I don't recognize the names.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, Russell Johnson was not in that. So
I'm thinking of another one. I know it was another one I saw him in. An old sci-fi movie. Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying
when
to
Earths
remember.
collide,
Huh?
when Earth, I'm thinking of like when Earths collide or something.
Yeah, I know I'll figure it out. It's gonna bother me. I'm about to figure out what it is. But well, anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This was our first episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to us, and we look forward to sharing your next episode with you soon. Good night, everybody.
Night.